It's a wonderful thing. But he's talking about millions of poor children and teenagers grow up without their biological father. And often when you ask them about it, they have a litany of male barbarism. You hear teens describe how their dad used to beat up their mom, how an absent father had 5 kids with several women and abandoned them all. And of course, when you ask the absent fathers themselves, you get a different picture. You meet guys who desperately did not want to leave their children, who swear they have tried to be with them, who feel unworthy of fatherhood but don't want to be the missing dad their own father was. In truth, when fathers abandon their own children, it is not a momentary process. And then so he goes on. Pregnancy is rarely planned among the populations these people studied. I have to skim along. Typically, the parents are in a semi-relationship that is somewhat between a one-night stand and an actual boyfriend-girlfriend bond. The couple use contraception at the beginning, but when it becomes understood that they are together, they stop. They don't really talk about pregnancy, but they sort of make it possible. When the men learn that their partner is pregnant, they don't panic, or lament for all the freedom they are going to miss. On the contrary, 3/4 of these men in this research were joyful at the news. These guys often have a lot of negativity in their lives. The child is a chance to turn things around. The men at this stage are filled with earnest resolve. They begin to take the relationship more seriously. This is of course how they're reporting it now. The key weakness is not the father's bond to the child, it's the parents' bond with each other. They usually went into this without much love or a sense of commitment. The fathers often retain a traditional and idealistic leave-it-to-beaver view of marriage. They dream of a perfect soulmate. They know this woman isn't it, and they're still looking around. Buried in the rigors of motherhood, the women, meanwhile, take a very different practical view of what they need in a man. Will this guy provide the financial stability I need? And if not, can I trade up to someone who will? Okay, and so on. It goes on, and of course, and he makes some secular suggestions, which are good. But I think from our religious perspective, we need to realize that fatherhood, comes from God. Motherhood comes from God also. St. Paul says, we honor the Father from whom all fatherhood, or all family, sometimes is a way to translate it, takes its name. So in other words, God's abundant love, his procreative love, and his nurturing love, and his protective love, his fatherly love, are key elements of this whole thing. So we're really celebrating God and fathers at the same time. Right? The huge social problems today, we can discuss a little bit of that, but let's celebrate. Let's be sure to get in touch with the greatness of our dads. In spite of their frailty or their inadequacy in some ways, they really oftentimes made sacrifices which we hardly understand. I often tell younger people, you'll never know who your father and mother were until you're at least 40. You'll never really know what kind of people they were. You haven't lived enough yet to know what they went through or what it cost them to do certain things. But anyway, we got a great day on our hands and God's all a piece of it. So I ask everybody in church at my mass to shake the hands of any man there and say Happy Father's Day, whether you're a father or not. It's a big day for you as a man. So try to get in touch with the good things God is showing you.
Yeah, amen. I love what you were saying about. Sometimes we don't see the man's perspective, or sometimes it's just when you were mentioning about the father leaving, and we just think, oh, like he's a bad person, like how could he do that? But that article kind of flipped it and made you think of some positive things.
Brooks backs it up with a lot of research. I mean, people trying to do their best, they're wounded themselves, drugs and crime and jail time, and are often, in this class of people talking about not just one particular race, but every disadvantaged situation you have. So you have really a complex thing. What is the way out? Well, surely from the Christian point of view, coming in contact with God our Father is going to be the first and the big help. And that this sister will be here give us a female perspective on things, but it's interesting, even in the New Testament, Luke takes Mary's side and Matthew takes Joseph's side, in the whole thing. It really is true. It's an amazing thing. And of course, poor Joseph is a typical man. It's amazing. He's over his head. He's over his head. But with God, he comes out with his feet on the ground and does a good job.
Yes. And I just wanted to mention to our listeners that if you would like to call in today or text in, our call-in number is 631-888-8811, and the text-in number is 516-784-6081. We invite you, if you have anything to share about your dads and just want to make a shout-out, let us know. We'd love to hear from you, and if you want to mention anything to us, how the show is going or anything, just feel free. So.
Could I say something?
Yes, jump in.
I thought it was beautiful. Fatherhood to the Father of us all, God. This last Sunday was Trinity Sunday.
That's right.
And that's my favorite feast of the whole year. That's God's feast.
Okay.
And God is the source of it all. Father Michael Himes described God. He said the least incorrect thing we could say about God was that God is pure self-gift, and that creation is simply the self-gift of God outpoured. So because love wishes to beget. And my own father, I can never thank my own father enough. He was always there for us. He was a very quiet man.
Well, tell us one story about him.
Okay.
Yes.
Because
Just give us one good story.
Okay, one good story. I was a kind of a tom girl.
A tomboy, or a
all right,
tomboy.
And so I had this lovely new skirt that I'd gotten, and we were going to visit relatives. And my mother said, "Joyce, you better not wear that, because knowing you're going to mess it up, tear it." I said, "Oh no, I'll be fine." So we get there, it's in Rocky Point, and I started climbing up this hill, and I stepped on the hem of the skirt and ripped. Well, I knew my mother would be very upset, so I ran back to the house, and I asked my mother's friend, "Could we get my father?" And she did, and he got him into a room. My father sewed. My father could do anything. He sewed my skirt. Meanwhile, my mother said, "Where is George? Where is George?" He was there, and he saved my neck. He saved my neck. So I think that's my dad.
Oh, great. Well, it's great that you can still use that expression. He could do anything.
Yes.
Because that's typical of a young boy or a young girl. That they think their dad and their mom too can do so many things.
Welcome, Tim. We also have Tim Froman here, who just walked in. He's from St. Catharines, and he makes all of our CDs. So just thank you so much for coming today.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And walking in. So we were just talking. Sister was just mentioning about her dad and how God's love is just a pure gift and outpoured. Sister would. Oh.
You wanted maybe Tim? Is it Tim?
Yes, it's Tim.
Maybe Tim would like to share what. Are you a father?
Yes, I am.
What would you like to share about fatherhood as we celebrate this weekend?
I
Tim.
have 3 children, and my daughter Caitlin is 23, and I have a son who's 19. And I have my little guy who's 12, who's outside that I'm trying to get in.
Yeah, you could come in. Yeah, come in.
We have some seats.
Yeah, let me just grab him.
Okay, no problem.
Bring him right in.
Yes.
He's going to be proud of his dad today.
Yes,
right?
he is.
He's going to be proud.
Mm-hmm.
Sit in the seats. Sit over there.
And so.
Okay, and that's
yes.
my son's friend that had a play date today.
Okay, very good. Hello, welcome.
My wife's girlfriend's daughter.
All right.
And we just drove out, but it's it's great being a dad. I was actually married 31 years. Yeah, we were married 7 years before we had our first.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very good.
And just.
How's the mic? Good. Okay.
Yes, it's good. Just tell us a little bit about what did you feel when you first became a dad, and just.
It was very exciting. I remember when my daughter Caitlin was born,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a wonderful experience. The kids are about 4 or 5 years apart. Right now she's working on Wall Street now for a dermatology office. She's an office manager, and she's doing great over there. She loves her job. We think she's going to be getting engaged soon. So that's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
My son, who's 19, we went to 2 World Youth Days, Yeah, we went to the one that was in Madrid, and
Well, that was a big father and kid thing.
yeah, that was very nice. Yeah, and we were in Fatima, and he's an altar server, and he served at the Fatima shrine, and that was a wonderful experience.
And you also were very blessed to carry the statue of the Blessed
Yes,
Mother during the procession.
Yeah, we had the procession, and then in the procession, it was just I guess it was Father Johnny being as pushy as he is. He was able to get us, me and Enzo,
and my father
Caterina's
as
dad,
well.
and we carried the statue that had the crown in it with the bullet that.
Went through St. John.
What was it, Pope John Paul II, I believe.
Right.
That's right.
That's
Yeah,
right.
and that was in the crown, and we carried that in the procession, and that was a real wonderful experience. And yeah, so the World Youth Days were very exciting. We had a good time. The second one we went to was in Rio, but we missed the one that was in Poland. Right? And that son, he's 19 now, and he's a helicopter pilot. Yeah, he flies helicopters.
In the Air Force or in the...
Well, it's a subsidiary of the Air Force. It's called the Civil Air Patrol. Yeah, and
But just the day-to-day experience of fatherhood. Tell us a little bit about that. Some of the daily stuff that.
well,
we
I
had
could
the
go
chance to
into
love your kids.
last night.
Yeah.
I got
Yes.
called into work. I run a power plant, and it's a 1,300 megawatt power plant. We supply 1/3 of Manhattan's electric power. And I got a call that we had, there's a main gas line that goes into the power plant, and it blew a safety valve started lifting. It failed. And it's supposed to lift at a rating of 400 pounds of gas line coming into the plant, which is about a 3-foot line. And it started lifting at 325 pounds, and it was blowing gas off, and it was an explosive condition. So we had to shut the whole facility down. I was there all night. We shut the facility down. We had a
This was
depressurizer last night.
And you're here now? And
Yeah,
you're not-
I got home at 7 o'clock
and you're
in the
not
morning.
still in bed?
Yeah, I got home at 7 in the morning.
This is a real man here.
Now, as
This
we're
is a
doing
real
this, I
man.
get a phone call from my little guy, because my wife was out with her girlfriends at the Darrell Hall concert in the city, and so my little guy was home alone, and my 2 other kids were out Friday night. So he calls up, and the house alarm's going off. So I'm in the middle of this gas thing going on, and then the house alarm, and I'm like, I'm on the phone with him, and like,
That's fatherhood.
Wow.
That's fatherhood right there.
Yeah, pretty nutty.
And you're worried about your kid too. You're
Yeah.
worried about the plant, but you're
Right.
worried about the kid too.
Yeah,
Sure,
so,
sure.
loads of fun.
And all the while, I was texting Tim, "Hey Tim, are you gonna come tomorrow to the show?" And he's
Yeah.
like, "Can't talk right now. I got this going."
And
And I was like, "Oh boy."
I have I was walking. I had my glasses, and just before you called, my glasses fell off, and I stepped on them. Like,
Oh no!
So I had a busy night.
A busy night, but
Yeah,
you're
Talk about
here,
how to
and
keep your cool. That's
Yeah, that's it,
beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful.
we're
But
so blessed
everything
that
went
you're.
good.
Oh, good.
These are the beautiful men that we have so many of and don't always make headlines by no means.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, very welcome.
Who do
Yes.
the dirty work sometimes, or put
Yes.
themselves at risk, and
Yes.
you know, that just reminded me of the firefighters and cops and so many fathers in the military who sacrifice and you know, who just give of themselves, and that's God's love right there through their actions. So yeah.
So anyway, Pope Francis is talking about the men a little bit in his Amoris Laetitia, the joy of love, and on love in the family. And
Is that an encyclical?
It's like an encyclical. It's called an apostolic exhortation.
Okay.
I just thought a paragraph or 2 might be good on the men's side of it. Men play an equally decisive role in family life, particularly with regard to the protection and support of their wives and children. Many men are conscious of the importance of their role in the family and live their masculinity accordingly. The absence of a father gravely affects family life and the upbringing of children and their integration in society. This absence, which may be physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual, deprives children of a suitable father figure. So hopefully, men will realize they must be physically present, but sometimes it's difficult for that emotional and psychological presence to be
Yes.
there. So that would, if we circle around to that, but it's really amazing that you had this practical problem, and your fatherhood was torn. You had your job responsibility, and yet your kid was worried.
Yeah, that's why God invented texting.
Pope Francis is, speaking about that. He said, and of course, we're trying to be, correct and not, weigh it one side or another. But there's an ideology of gender that denies the difference in reciprocity and nature of a man and a woman, and envisions a society without sexual differences, thereby eliminating the anthropological basis of the family. All right, and so forth and so on. But it points out that, a mother will handle her role in one way as a woman, a father will handle it in another way as a man. But we both are working together in love for each other and love for the kids, something terrific can happen. And so I'm so glad you told me that story.
But, we actually met Pope Francis when we were in Rio. His car, the Popemobile, was going down and was right in front of us, and just 1 in a million, it just stopped right by where we were. And he gets out of the car, he's shaking hands with everybody. Father Johnny's trying to get in there, but he's like too short.
Well, that's perfect. He could squeeze in,
me and your dad got in there. But,
you shook Pope Francis' hand?
No, we came close. I almost got him, but he shook their hand to the person next to me. I almost got him.
Wow, so you were right there.
We were right there. He just stopped and got out of the car and started shaking hands with everybody. And me and your dad were right there.
Millimeters.
Johnny's trying to climb over everybody.
You could have brought Father Johnny.
Yeah, I could have pretended he was a baby and handed him right back. That ain't no baby.
But no, that's amazing.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Oh, good.
Father Johnny's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We had a blast with him.
Such a blessing, and I was just mentioning before that we can remember priests as fathers as well, and all that they do, and that for their parish. And
priests just have a lot more kids than we do.
Yeah, they have a lot more to think about, right?
But they don't have to put them to bed at night.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they can. Yeah, okay, that's good. I can leave now.
Close the church.
Take off. It's really true. But it is beautiful, because we do get back to the fatherhood of God, and it's not to diminish the role of a mom, but the biblical tradition gives us Abba, Father. This is a wonderful book by a person who did a lot of work in deliverance ministry to the Lozanos, and of course it talks about the fatherhood of God, something that's really very, very important for folks today. Okay, so I just wanted to share just a tiny little bit of that. A father loves to say yes, and I think this is talking about God too. Fear not, little flock. It is your Father's good pleasure to give you a kingdom. I often had to say no to my 4 boys, and it was hard. Sometimes they wanted something that was not good for them, and other times they wanted something we could not afford. They needed to learn that not everything they desired was good, and that saying no to some things would mean saying yes to others. Knowing that these lessons were valuable did not make it easier for me, but in my heart I always wanted to say yes. Now that I have granddaughters, I realize it would have been even harder to say no to a daughter. So I thought that revealed a little bit of a father's true love and affection for his kids, and how important it was to him sometimes to say no, but how he tore him apart.
I'm always the one that says yes, and I always get in trouble for my wife.
She's always like, how'd you say?
Yeah, they always need money, and don't give them any.
That's right. If the kid wants the money, you give it to him.
Yeah,
even if you don't really have it, you give it to him.
Yeah, just don't tell your mother.
I'm sure a lot of parents can relate to that. And when you were saying before about the father, the role of the father and the mother, I also thought of St. John Paul II's theology of the body, and how men and women are created differently in love, but still able to carry out the roles of being a mother and a father.
And both are needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Both are needed.
Both are needed. And so right now we're going to play a song to just break it up a little bit and think of God's goodness and His creation and making us out of love. And when we come back, we're going to be mentioning more about fatherhood, and also Sister Joyce will be sharing about care for the environment, an amazing topic. So keep listening.
Yeah, I heard it was going to be on the Pope's encyclical on caring for the environment, and then I'm like, I was driving, so I'm like, I can't read this thing. So what I did is I found it online in audio in an MP3 file. So I listened to like the first 10 parts, but that's all I got up to. But I found it online, and I put it on a USB, stuck it in the car, and then I was able to listen to it while I was driving.
Wow.
Yeah.
God bless you. Really, God bless
Oh,
you.
thanks.
Trying to do all that, you know, with the night you had and trying.
But you hear it all as a
Well,
miracle.
the good thing is I'm not bored.
No, an engaged father is never going to be bored. That's for
Yeah.
sure. No.
Not, life is too, not just complex, but filled with so many opportunities. There's terrible challenges, but there's so many opportunities to radiate God's love
Yeah.
and to be a sign of life and hope. The last three popes, hope, hope, hope,
Yeah.
talked about hope as a virtue so needed
So,
in our time.
yes, yes.
So Benedict, John Paul II, who wrote the Crossing the Threshold of Hope, and Benedict brought out
Yeah, I
hope.
really like John Paul too.
Yes,
He was
me
great.
too, me too.
All three of those popes were different men, but they all had charisms.
Yes, they did.
They all had special gifts. Yeah.
I'm like listening to the song. I love it.
So,
Their songs I shall live.
I was just thinking, isn't there a song out
Testify
there
to
that you were
love,
our
be
father?
witness in the sight.
Abba Father, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would have.
This is a meditation really on the fatherhood of God by a person who's
That
done.
name sounds familiar.
Well, they're from Philadelphia, and their deliverance ministry has been brought to this diocese.
It's gonna come up
Father
soon.
Charles
It's gonna be
Mangano
ending
and
soon.
Father Tony Stanganelli.
Yeah.
I know.
They
Charles Magano sings, right?
Yeah, but he's
and
the same with
sister
Sister Laurie. With Sister
His
Laurie,
sister,
that's
yeah.
right, that's right. And they're both pastors now, and they collaborate.
Okay, we're back. So we're testifying to love here right now, and if you wanna call in or text in, join us. Our telephone number here is 631-888-8811, and our text-in number is 516-784-6081. And so we're gonna turn it over now to Sister. And as I mentioned, she's a Dominican sister, and her congregation is in Amityville on Long Island, right here on Long Island. And it's so amazing. She was telling me that they have an organic farm, and they teach people in the neighboring community or schools, just anybody who wants, how to garden and how to take care of nature and plants. And they also have a beehive that makes honey. And I love that. That sounds really delicious, right?
You brought honey, right?
Did you bring honey? No. Maybe another time. But yeah, tell us, Sister, about.
Well, many people think that this Laudato Si, which is, it isn't just environment. People think of the word environment simply as the physical aspects around you. And starting back 27 years ago, on World Peace Day, Pope John Paul II gave his World Peace Day message. It was a 12-page letter from which he spoke, and it was entitled "The Ecological Crisis, a Moral Responsibility." That was 27 years ago. And he talked to us about a world view. Now, most of us who are older, we grew up in a worldview that thought of each individual as separate, and separate nature was like a background to us, almost like a stage on which humans lived. But going way back to the early church, all right, theology and nature and the human were like a three-legged stool. They were interconnected, and we saw that God, who's creator of everything, in the book of wisdom it tells us that God's imperishable spirit is in all things. And so that, like St. John Damascene, back in the early, I forget whether it's the 4th or 5th century, said, every creature is an icon of the face of God. St. Thomas Aquinas said every creature is a footprint of God. And so creatures reveal to us another aspect of God. And Thomas Aquinas, who was a Dominican, by the way.
That's right.
Ooh.
Take the vow, sister. Yes, take the
He
vow.
said that when God created, the divine goodness was so great that God wanted to share that, to outpour it, and that he created many different creatures, okay, so that what was lacking in the divine goodness in one would be found in another. And so that no creature contain all of God, but he said that all creation taken together better manifests God than any single individual creature whatsoever, that we're all connected. So John Paul II, in writing this, he brought up the word ecology and integral ecology, which means the human and the natural world. You couldn't have a human community without a water community. No water, they can live without water, the bacteria, all right? And if you have no soil for plants to grow, if that's not there, no human community. We're part of all of that, so as we poison or we destroy or harm these life systems, we are literally destroying ourselves and the creation God made. It's one, in Romans 8, St. Paul tells us that all creation, not just humans, all creation is groaning even until now to be brought to fulfillment. And that comes through Jesus. All things were made through him, the Word of God. All things were made for him. He is before all else that is. And all things are reconciled in him, things in heaven and the earth. So we have this organic garden. Why? Why? Because the pesticides we have been using and the herbicides we have been using are to the point that after World War II, I think there were a little less than 20 types of insects that were like immune to our different methods of controlling them. Mm-hmm. Now there's over 400. And our bee colonies are destroying. So I was always interested in God as truth. The Dominican order's motto is truth. And I love both science and I love religion, and the two. Science teaches us how the world works. Religion teaches us why it's there, yes, and who started it. What is it all about? What's it for? What is it for?
EPA, like,
yes,
for example, the EPA, like one of the insecticides was chloridane, and chloridane was very, yes, persistent, and that would stay in the ground for about 10 years before it would degrade. So now with the EPA, they came in with insecticides that are required to completely break down after 3 months. So after 3 months, they're completely broken down, and that way at least they're a bit safer.
Those are good. Yeah. But the thing is, I forget which company has just been permitted to start manufacturing that dichlorane 1,4, I think it's dichlorane again. So that is not
that
good.
Stuff is very persistent.
Very persistent, yeah, in the atmosphere. Well, a sister in our community and myself, we both at different times were very interested in how do we start protecting this land, especially on Long Island. We used to have many farms. I remember Levittown used to be potato fields and so on.
Yeah, Franklin Square, where we are, that
it was all farm for the city.
Right.
Rod camps, remember rod camp?
So, yes, the rod camps right in Elmont.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
We had many. So, Sister started that in 1997, our farm started. This will be the 20th anniversary. And the purpose was to work sustainably the way both Pope John Paul II and Pope Francis, now 25, he wrote his encyclical Laudato Si in 2015. Yeah, that's what that's about. And it's building on Pope John Paul II, who picked out what it was happening. There's one line here, it says, that I'd like to read.
You could just go a little closer to them.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
A new ecological I think, a new ecological, I can't see it that far. Let me see if I can, no.
Or you could just.
Okay, let me see if I can speak loud enough back here.
Okay.
A new ecological
That's good. Yeah.
occurrence is beginning to emerge, which rather than being downplayed, ought to be encouraged to develop more concrete programs and alternatives. And Pope John Paul II goes into the deforestation. Like the earth is like an organism, a living organism. The forests and the phytoplankton in the oceans and the grass, all of that produces oxygen. They're like the lungs of the planet. The rivers and streams are like the bloodstream of the planet. The wetlands are like the kidneys. They filter out the wastes. And as we destroy or harm these different things,
It has a
that makes
domino effect.
Yes. Well, in 1999, I studied at Genesis Farm, which is an Earth Literacy Center. We had some scientists from NASA there also as well, helping us. And then I went to study at the Global Education Associates, which is a Catholic organization, which has offices in 90 different countries to bring a moral dimension to like poverty, human trafficking, war, to the environmental issues. And they had us become, when I started teaching, I had 51 children in St. Agnes and Rockville Center. I had about 8 children with allergies. When I stopped formal teaching in a regular school in 1997, I had 32 children in my class. I had about 7 children with asthma and more than half the class with allergies.
Wow.
We're polluting ourselves. We're polluting ourselves, causing all kinds of... You can't have healthy people on a sick planet. And people don't realize that. So Pope John Paul II talked about our moral responsibility to live a simpler lifestyle. And that the earth is not just for certain people, it's a common gift from God to us all. And that all of us should reap both the joys of it and take care of its problems. So he's calling us each to try to work on those problems in our own lifestyle. He said we can become over consumers. We can more and more, we have to have this, we have to have that. The children are taught on TV, they get a gospel of greed. You must have this to be happy. You must get this to be happy. You have to look like that to be happy. And so the children more and more consider what's important is something outside them, what they have or what they look like, not who they are and how they act to one another.
Some people don't realize the preparation that went into the earth. For example, like 4.5 billion years, we had life on the planet. There was stromatolites. That was the first form of life. And if you look at human existence, and if you look at if human existence was a 10-mile road, if you had a 10-mile road from when the first traces of life were on the planet 4.5 billion years ago, and then and that was 10 miles long all the way up until now, human existence would only be a 32nd of an inch compared to that entire existence. That's how long God was preparing the planet. And for example, the fuel oils and everything is from the phytoplankton and zooplankton that was in the early oceans, and then that ended up becoming a fuel oil and a coal that took tens of billions of years to form. And it seems that God put humans in existence at their exact right time when all that stuff came to maturity that was able to be utilized.
But today, now we have to keep it underground, because what's happening as we're burning it now, we're releasing more of the carbon dioxide. And as the earth warms, we have methane from cattle, we have more and more cattle, and it's 20% of the methane comes from raising cattle. We're cutting down the Amazon rainforest for McDonald's.
Yeah.
They're raising their cattle in the Amazon rainforest, a good deal of their cattle. People don't know this. And as you cut down, especially old growth forests, you are cutting down what holds that carbon down into the earth.
Yeah, and I've also like seen with power plants, with from the first power plant that was in was the JFK facility, which supplies Kennedy Airport, and our nitrous oxides we had our Title V was at 8.4 parts per million.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm in a brand new power plant, and that's down to 2 parts per million.
Good.
And it's making huge headways with power plants. I can tell you that much.
Okay.
And so like right now we have a power plant that's 1,300 megawatts. We're
Right.
putting out less pollutants than a jet idling on a runway.
Well, that's wonderful.
And so that got cut down tremendously. And they do that through catalytic reactors, through ammonia injection, all kinds of different things to knock down the pollutants.
And also in our cars, right?
Yeah, the
Reducing
cars
with
are
less emission.
putting out a lot
But
less.
now some of those restrictions are now being lifted so that they don't have to follow those restrictions.
Well, sister, isn't it a serendipity that you've got a dialogue partner here who knows a little bit about chemicals?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
This wasn't even planned. This wasn't even planned.
It was very last
Because
minute.
he knows so much, and that is beautiful for people to know,
Yeah,
and
some-
for me to know.
Yeah, some
But it's
people-
also,
yeah.
but it's also to know, like for instance, for the life systems on Earth to be fairly healthy, you shouldn't have more than 350 parts per million of carbon dioxide in our air to keep things going on a normal basis. We have over 400 parts per million now, all right? And what's happening, why is that so bad? It used to be that before we had the problem with the ozone layer back,
Yeah.
and we changed that. Through technology, we stopped
Yeah, that was
hole
from
that was growing. That's right.
hydrochlorodiphloamethanes. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, are you a chemical engineer?
No, I'm a mechanical engineer, but I got into the chemical aspect of it because
Good.
of the treatment of our waste gases and stuff.
And keep up your good work, because I had a friend of
Yeah,
mine.
that was refrigerant. Mostly that
Yeah.
was R11 was the worst offender, and
That's
they
right.
cut R11 out. R11 was really attacking the ozone layer, but they phased out R11 and they came out with some new refrigerants that almost do nothing to the ozone.
All right, so what Pope North of the Garden, what we do, we have joined the Northeast Organic Farmers Association, like Cornell Cooperative Extension works with us with the farms on Long Island. Many of them now are organic, especially at the East End. They're trying to protect their land and soil. And so we bring children. For 10 years, I was a teacher with the children. After I retired, I had open heart surgery. So we had, I had 10 years with the other sister. We created a curriculum for the children to understand the beauty of God's creation. How do we protect it? How do we take care of it? How are we connected to it? And how can we keep it good? And so they would pull out, we had inner city children come. And they had never seen a carrot coming out of the ground. They thought the carrots practically grew in the grocery store.
Yeah, they
In other
developed.
words, they just thought they got there. They didn't know.
They made a factory.
They didn't know where they came from.
Yeah.
In other words, but they have it, and then to taste it, we had washed them all off, and it was so sweet compared to the chemicals that you get. We have Eagle Scouts who work at our farm, who do projects at our farm for us, raised beds so that the elderly can work. We have had high school science teachers come. We've had summer programs for teaching how to, compost, how to not waste. Production on Earth and nature, it has something grows, it lives, produces, it dies, but then it's recycled by nature to create something else.
And some people
bodies.
don't realize that the whole solar system is actually in a particular balance. For example, like the Earth is on the 23-degree axis. The moon actually keeps the Earth like an outrigger of a canoe in balance. So like the other planets like Mercury, Venus, Mars that don't have a large moon, the tilt is 90 degrees. So if the Earth did that and tilted 90 degrees, it would put the polar ice caps on the equator at different points. Every 11 years, the polar ice caps would be in a different spot on the equator. You'd be in 2 miles of ice. It would kill all life on Earth. So the moon, being exactly a quarter, or pretty close to the quarter the size of the Earth, keeps the Earth on its axis and enables life to be balanced. And also the moon, the reason that the moon appears in the sky the same exact size as the sun, is because the moon, the sun is exactly 400 moon diameters, and the moon is 400 times closer, and it puts it in bounds. The moon was when first formed was 4.5 billion years ago. It's been moving away from the Earth an inch and a half a year.
Right.
So the now it's in perfect bounds. So there's not in 4.5 billion years from now, we actually lose the moon. It goes out into space. So it's at an exact midpoint right now from the formation. So there's a 9 billion year relationship between the moon and the Earth. And the interesting part is this: it's like the exact point where the moon is the same size in the sky as the sun in perfect balance. And that happened right when human existence came along. So it's like everything was all prepared in order. So like you look at that's like it's almost like proves the existence of God, that that things are in such a balance.
Well, they have said, scientists, that, and it isn't just a theory, that with the Big Bang, or however you start that.
And that was actually discovered by a Catholic priest, the
Yes,
Big Bang.
yes,
Yeah.
Lemaitre.
Lemaitre, yes.
All right.
And he's the first one. He actually calculated the 13.7 billion years mathematically by hand, and that's only was adjusted to 13.8 recently.
Right.
That's how accurate he was. But it's misattributed to Edwin Hubble. Edwin Hubble only proved that Lemaitre was correct, but the school systems never tell you that Lemaitre is the one who discovered the Big Bang.
And what is beautiful there, okay, when that started, had it been 1/trillionth of a second faster, from that particularity.
Yeah, there's
The
cosmological
things would have
constants.
nothing would have congealed, just gone out. No atoms would have formed. If it had been 1/trillionth of a second slower, it would have stayed congealed, and you would not have had life.
It's amazing.
So it was like, they call it the anthropic principle.
Correct. Yes.
Where it was like the Earth was preparing.
Yep, and you have
the
20
universe.
cosmological constants, and every one of them was perfectly aligned. It's just amazing. Yeah, like
So
That is
God
really amazing.
Well, that's God's
His love,
calculations, and
his
how
calculation
beautiful.
and perfection and love and
Well, if you take a deep breath, if all of you here, including those two lovely children of yours, take a real deep breath. We will do it. Let go. You have breathed in you atoms from any person or living thing that has lived for at least 3 years on this earth. You have molecules of Jesus Christ in you. You have molecules of your grandparents if they've died, and even if they're still alive, because that's how long it takes those molecules to circulate. 3 years to circulate in
Particularly
our
water.
atmosphere. Yes, and so even living things. Take a look what food, when you eat food, how does that food know how to become a brain cell, or a heart cell, or a kidney, or a bone? All of that is so marvelous. Our human body is such a gift from God. And how do we take care of it? And so, taking care of the earth that helped to produce us, God took the dust of the earth and blew into it a living soul, symbolizing how the earth is part of who we are, and we're part of that.
And even if you consider evolution, which I don't know if the Catholic Church actually
Pope
supports,
John Paul II
but,
said it's okay.
but even if that's accepted, if you think about it, it still came from the earth. You know what I mean? Because because before there was any life on the earth, you just had the earth and you had the dirt of the earth. Then everything arose from that. So God worked on that. So the statement that that man was made from the dust of the earth is actually 100% correct.
Yes, and we're also stardust, because the earth came forth, like when these huge supernovas explode. It isn't the end of it. God has it so that they produce nebula.
The big chemical labs.
Yes, and out of that, every one of our atoms was once in a star.
Yes.
Every one of them. And the mountains. How God just took it together. Like, I could go on forever about how wonderful God is.
And I just want
to.
It's okay. I just want to just mention I got 2 texts here, and I really just wanted to as well. And so again, we're just saying Happy Father's Day as well. And like what Sister was saying, how great we were created in God's image, and just stardust and out of the creation of, we're just so connected in that way. Everything is just, so.
God, it's like each of us is like a cell in the human body. Each one is individual, but it's part of the whole. And each one has its place, and if it's missing, something's missing. And God loves it, wants it all to come together. And how do we help protect one another? How do we protect the earth that helps us to become who we are?
Sure, and St. Paul is good on this one too, sister.
Okay, good.
We know that all creation is groaning in labor pain even until now. And not only that, but we ourselves who have been the first fruits of the Spirit, we also groan within ourselves as we await for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. For in hope we were saved. Now hope that sees for itself is not hope. For who hopes for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait with endurance. In the same way the Spirit too comes to the aid of our weakness. We do not know how to pray as we ought, but the Spirit himself intercedes with inexpressible groanings. And the one who searches hearts knows what is the intention of the Spirit, because it intercedes for the body according to God's will. So isn't that a beautiful?
That is gorgeous. That's one of my favorite scriptures.
Oh,
That's one of my favorite
Happy
scriptures.
Father's Day for
happy-
everybody, and
yes.
Sister too, sharing it. That was a great story you told about your own dad.
He's a great, delightful man. Quiet, faithful, and delightful.
Oh, beautiful. And so yeah, we're just wrapping up here our show. We could go on for hours. I always say there's so much to say, but we're just reminded today to, in our own little ways, to take care of the environment, to recycle. And if you want to learn more about Sisters Farm, you could contact me, and we'll get you in contact. And you could go visit if you want, or just anything.
Grapes for wine, are you?
Grapes for wine, Tim said.
No,
One day, maybe.
We also give. I know we're finished, right? With the.
Yes,
no.
we're going to be finishing up right now.
Oh, we do. The members of the farm, we have about 100 and some odd members, but they give $100 each toward making the Interfaith Nutritional Network in Hempstead. We have given them, like last year, 2,000 pounds of fresh vegetables. Twice a week, we bring that to their guests. They feed about 400 to 500 people
Wow.
a day. So, and then
That's
now
beautiful.
they have a place where they are training them for new other jobs. They can take showers there and not just have a meal, but there's job training now for these guests that they have. So it's like the arms of God reaching out to touch people.
That is a blessing, and happy Father's Day again, and God bless you. And thank you for listening. See you next week.
You fascinate me.
Oh.
You do. It's wonderful. All your information.
Oh,
That's
boy.
great.
Oh, thanks.